Good morning. Glad you're with us. Welcome to the April 11th, 2023 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. And for those watching online, we welcome you as well. We'll begin as we always do with an invocation, and Reverend Eric Hoy from First Presbyterian Church is with us. Please stand.
Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we come before you just with saddened hearts about the tragic news yesterday in our own state. God, we pray for the families. We pray for the help. We pray for the trauma that's being experienced right now. Lord, we pray that you send your peace and your presence in the midst of confusion and hurt and pain. And Lord, so we just lift up those who lost their lives to you. We just silently offer them a moment of respect. God, we stand before you this morning to thank you for the opportunity to assemble and make decisions on behalf of this county today. And I pray for those in leadership before me this morning. I pray that you would give them wisdom to govern in the midst of the challenges of our day. I pray for a sense of welfare and an understanding of the needs of our people. I pray for a keen thirst for what is right and just, and an ability to work together in harmony. And lastly, I pray for peace in their lives and joy in their daily work. And so we lift up their agenda before us today, and we pray that you bless it and use it for the good of our county. Please, O Lord, give our leaders assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our county. For we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate Tompkins.
Here.
Magistrate Southern.
Here.
Magistrate Starks.
Here.
And Magistrate Berry.
Here.
Gentlemen, you have before you the minutes of the March 28th, 2023 Fiscal Court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other corrections, clarifications, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our Judges Scholar with us today, Ms. Kaylin Canary, and I want to meet you right up and do a very special thing in your honor.
We're going to read proclamation.
All right. Whereas Kaylin Canary has been chosen by Henderson County Central Academy to be a recipient of the Judges Scholar Award for exceptional efforts in both academics and school activities, and whereas Kaylin's hard work and dedication in making the most of educational experiences and developing positive relationships with teachers and other students will lead to future success, and whereas success is measured in many different ways, whether it be passing a test, scoring the winning point, achieving a particular goal, or taking the necessary steps for overall improvement, and whereas the Henderson County school system could not let Kaylin's efforts go unnoticed, and whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court supports the school system and acknowledges these accomplishments as being significant because students such as Kaylin Canary will be our future leaders. Now, therefore, I, Brad Schneider, County Judge Executive of Henderson, join with the Henderson County Fiscal Court to proclaim today, April 11th, 2023, as Kaylin Canary Day here in Henderson County.
Congratulations, Kaylin. It's a big deal, and I know later today you're going to be going to lunch with Master Putman. That'll be fun, too. You got to go back to school afterwards. That's the only...
No.
All right.
Wow. All right.
Got the rest of the day off.
She's actually on her way to the University of Louisville.
Fantastic.
Well done.
Very proud of you. All right. Well, this is going to be fun then. As much as government can be fun. Glad you're with us. Okay. We got a busy agenda today, and first we're going to take care of our annual Warm Center CDBG grants, a couple bit of housekeeping things we do for them every year. They pull money from a certain pot devoted to the work they do. And I'd like to bring up Taylor Burkett from Green Area Development District that helps us with these CDBG grants. And the first thing I'd like to do is have a motion to go into public hearing, which is part of the system here. So can I get a motion to go into public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in public hearing, and with that, I'll ask Taylor, do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you want to give us a little breakdown on this real quick.
Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the closeout for the CDBG CV project. So that was the COVID-specific money. You got that in addition to just the normal annual allotment. So the purpose of this meeting is to provide information regarding the closeout process for the Henderson County Regional Recovery Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 project for the 2020 COVID-19 funding. The Women's Addiction Recovery Manor has been in existence for about 15 years. The center houses over 100 women on a daily basis. CDBG funds of $190,000 were utilized to cover extra operational costs during the COVID-19 pandemic when other sources of income were lowered. Funds used for the original construction of WARM consisted of low-income tax credits, home funds, affordable housing trust funds, and funding through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati. Funds used to house the women and pay utilities include funds from the Department of Corrections and Section 8 vouchers. With this being said, are there any comments or questions from the court or from the audience concerning the closing of the 2020 COVID-19 round of funding?
I'll ask again, are there any comments from members of the audience? I've got to ask this 3 times, so. I'll ask again, any comment?
Just a quick clarification for the record. WARM, when we say that, that is a project of the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated, a Kentucky nonprofit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
One last time. Any other further comment? After that briefing and public hearing, I'll need a motion to go out of public hearing and consider the closeout itself.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. And Taylor, if you want to continue on the actual closeout.
That was all I had for the closeout.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So the next step is the binding agreement. Technically, this
This is for, the other was for the closeout of the CV funds. This evidentiary materials is actually for last year's grant, which we approved last July.
Yeah. So any more action needed on the closeout?
No.
Okay. So this is for the new year. And anything you want to say about the legally binding agreement?
As the attorney said, there is a bit of a discrepancy in the legal name, and we at GRAD are currently working on making sure that is 100% correct. So we will have an updated copy of that to you for signature this week.
Okay. Any other questions about this agreement for the next year? Same program, same funding, just a new bit of work. And I think I'd like to entertain a motion to, do you have to read this agreement?
No.
To accept it pending the correction of the legal entity identification
And
for
I
the document.
spoke with Nicole Fields at the Warm Center yesterday, and they had just neglected to do an assumed name, which they had done for the Mark Center, but they've not done one for Warren yet. So I think it's $20 to the Secretary of State. So all they need to do to fix that was,
Perfect.
seemed to be her plan. But
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, knowing that they're going to take care of that, can I get a motion to approve pending the finalization of that little bit of business?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions about this? We appreciate all the Warm Center does in our community. They've been doing a fantastic job for 15 years. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you do, Taylor. We have a seat on the County Board of Zoning Adjustment coming up, Jane Barong's chair, and she has been an exemplary member of the County Board of Zoning Adjustment and is eligible to continue in a new term. And I would very much like for her to stay. I've watched her work firsthand, and she's very conscientious and knows what she's doing. I believe I'd like to get a vote of approval for that. So entertain a motion to approve Jane Barong to serve another term on the County Board of Zoning Adjustment.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks to Jane for doing that. You have in your packet also an agreement between Henderson Emergency Management and the library, along with Fiscal Court, to designate the library as a storm shelter. Its particular architectural profile fits the need, and I'll ask Kenny and our librarian to sure. Give us a little background here.
Good morning.
good morning.
Okay, so this came about from a safety walkthrough that we did,
Probably 9 months ago, maybe.
and it sounds about right, at the library as part of the Weather Ready Community Project that we have going on in the county right now. So we went around the entire facility and looked at different spots that were more safe or less safe to put people, including the staff and the public. So in those conversations, after we got finished with that, the conversation happened about offering up the facility as a shelter for not only just a shelter, but actually a place where we could go if other places were damaged or destroyed, and set up our command post and facilities where we could run operations and run the government if we have to. So that's what you're looking at now is the end result of that, and I'll let Shannon and Eric say something if they want.
Eric didn't follow us.
You didn't get up.
As Kenny said, you know, it really did just stem out of me watching everything that was going on in Western Kentucky after those tornadoes, and I kept on looking at our facility and looking at everything we have to offer. We have the perfect meeting space, we have a computer lab, we have everything that, you know, we would need if something were to happen. My goal and my hope, desire would be that we never have to use this agreement, but I just, as always, want to make sure the library is the resource that our community needs. So that's where it stems from.
I'm glad you're willing to, and the trustees are willing to make this available. I think it's important. We've begun to identify different places in the county, out in the county as well, that might make suitable places in case, you know, God forbid, even your facility or others in the city limits would be unavailable. So this may not be the last agreement that Kenny brings us. And this is all stems out of our experience with the tornadoes 2 years ago and the floods in eastern Kentucky, better preparedness on our part to make sure we can respond. So thank you.
I've reviewed the agreement. It's approved as to form and legality.
So at that, I'll entertain a motion to approve this partnership.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is another annual bit of business. The state transportation cabinet tells us how much money they're going to be allocating out of their county road aid program for our streets and roads. The number you see is 1.430 million and change. It's divvied up to us 3 times, at least twice a year, and then a third time, I think, right after the beginning of the fiscal year. So we just have to approve this resolution to let them know that we agree. And this is not the same as when KYTC comes to ask us about use of our flex funds. That's a different proceeding. So any questions about that? And I'll ask Nick Stallings if he wants to come up and say anything about this.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was this is typical. They do, county roads fall under their classification for county road aid. So this is money they give all the counties. So definitely needed, and you put a good work.
Slight bump from last year, but if you read the resolution, it is a estimate. The final payment is made based on state funds and some other factors, so it doesn't always work out to exactly that amount, but hopefully they get close. So, any other questions about that? If you don't mind, you have a shorter resolution than this to read?
This is the resolution.
Okay, all right. We'll read the resolution.
I've reviewed the agreement. It's approved as to form and legality with the exception of numerical paragraph 8, where we always add to the extent allowed by law prior to the county shall fully indemnify and hold harmless, yada, yada, because the county can't, just like the state can't. We do that every year.
Fiscal Court of Henderson County, resolution adopting and approving the execution of a county road aid co-op program contract between the Fiscal Court and Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Department of Rural and Municipal Aid for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, as provided in the Kentucky Revised Statutes, and accepting all roads and streets that referred to therein as part of the county road system. Be resolved by the Fiscal Court that the Fiscal Court does hereby accept all roads and streets referred to in said contract as being part of the county road system, and the Fiscal Court does hereby ratify and adopt all statements, representations, warranties, covenants, and agreements contained in said contract, and does hereby accept said contract, and by such acceptance agrees to all terms and conditions therein stated. And the county judge executive of the county is hereby authorized and directed to sign said contract as set forth on behalf of the Fiscal Court of Henderson County, and the county clerk of Henderson County is hereby authorized and directed to certify thereto.
Can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we have a bid opening for the structure on Hatchet Mill. I think that's the largest knife used for bid openings
Absolutely.
since I became judge.
Absolutely.
Better to need it and not have it than have it and not need it, right?
And that's what I'm talking
Or have it
about.
not need it.
All right, first quote is from Contech. They got a steel bridge. Their price is $91,100. Let me look at their deck. And this is a poured in place deck that's got to be done during construction. So that'll add some dollars to that one, but that's their bid.
So the 91
$91,100 is for the plans, design, is for the 40-foot bridge, the steel girders, and then it is the stay-in-place decking and formwork to pour the concrete.
So we'd have to buy the concrete.
We would have to buy the concrete. We'll have to buy the concrete for the deck, the rebar, and for the abutment. All right. This is from E&H Bridge. They have steel beams, the 4-inch metal grid decking, so they got a decking already. The lookouts, ties, the diaphragm, weathering steel, $93,522 is their bid price. $93,522. All right, next I got Scott Murphy. All right, they got concrete, precast concrete beam bridge, side-by-side box beam, which is a typical, bridge for actually a lot of state roads also. He's got a price of $89,965 for the design of the concrete abutments and the concrete bridge. So bridge beams and bridge deck are all one with the box beam. So it's a pre-stressed hollow core structural element. So they got $89,965.
Now that would be complete?
Is that?
We wouldn't have to pour the concrete on that one?
Nope, those are basically 8 and 12 Clay Street right there before you get into the city. That's a box beam. If you go out 812 right past that subdivision, the first bridge at the 4.2 mile marker, that's a box beam. All it looks like, you'll look at the beam, you'll see vertical longitudinal joints between all the beams, and it's basically sit down, so the element itself is the beam bridge and the deck all at once. All right, this bid is from U.S. Bridge, and they have steel, self-weathering steel. Their wearing surface, which the concrete deck, is performed by others, so they're in the same boat as Contech is. Their price is $104,040. So in recap, U.S. Bridge and Contech are both steel elements, but they have, the deck has to be performed by others. So it will be an extra cost when we get to construction. E&H Bridge had a bid of $93,522, and they are a steel bridge with a steel deck, so no concrete's needed. Scott Murphy was $89,965, and they have their precast box beams are structural elements, and actually the steel, the concrete deck itself. So they're a one-stop unit too. So E&H and Scott Murphy, their bridges are complete, including deck, and the other two, the deck will be remaining to do during construction.
So what's the main difference in maintenance on the complete steel package versus the concrete? Is it very similar, I'm assuming?
No, there's not a lot of difference. You're saying between a steel deck and a concrete deck?
Right. Is there like anything you have to do one more than the other?
Nope. There's not. The concrete deck, or you're right on that surface. You don't have any issues with that. Steel deck is a different form of theoretically have no snow load, have no water load. It's open deck, so everything comes on and falls through.
Right.
It's either one's is a great option. So
Okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Fair to say you'd like to go back and review these? And
yes,
go back
I will.
and-
I will do that, and then I will go back and I will select the design next court. And with that, I will also ask if I can go ahead and put a bid together next quarter, I'll ask for it to, so I can go out for bids for construction. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
Next, we have, if I can call Jailer Todd up, we have 5, I think, bids total, various aspects of their operations. These bid openings were made at the jail, and we
Morning, sir.
are ready to hear Jailer Todd's recommendations on each of these items.
Okay, first will be our medical. That was a tough one. We're recommending CCC, the 1.588. The next one was QCC at 1805. And we waived the, in our RFP, the 10-year requirement on CCC. And they're in several jails in Kentucky, and I've called the ones that has a large amount of inmates like we did have. And so they got the experience, so we're gonna go with them.
Okay. And that's a 3-year contract?
Yes, 3 years with one,
Option year?
yeah, one option, yeah. Yes, sir.
So just to explain to the court, the RFP did have a provision in there that said the provider must have 10 continuous years of corporate experience in administering correctional mental health and healthcare programs. But the RFP also did say the jailer reserves the right to waive defects or irregularities. The final award would be made on the most qualified, responsive, and responsible provider as determined in accordance with the evaluation criteria, policies, and procedures identified by the jailer. So Jailer Todd, you you indicated that you were waiving that
Yes, sir.
requirement based on CCC and their experience as far as having a pretty large footprint in Henderson, or I mean, in the state right now, and Henderson actually has prior experience with CCC. Is that
Yeah, we
correct?
had them
Or-
for a while. And there was, I don't know what the conflict was for sure, but they chose to pull out.
It is your recommendation to the court, based
Yes.
on your evaluation criteria, to waive that provision, and you believe that's in the
Yes,
best
sir.
interest of the county?
Do you think it'd be good to approve each of these, or what is, as a group total, or what do you think?
No, they need to be separate.
So you've heard the recommendation. Both Butch Putman and Steve Gold and I were there at the opening of this, looked through. I absolutely agree with Jailer Todd's choice. I know they spent a lot of time reviewing all the bids, so. That, entertain a motion to approve their
So
selection of
moved.
CCC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And next.
Next one is our food service, and we went with the Kelwell. They had the best price of all, and we still they've been with us for a while. They take care of us, so I'm recommending that we go with Kelwell.
They were the low bid.
Yeah.
I move we accept it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
And they are the current provider?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is phones.
Yeah, let's get the phones. I got, okay. Phones, we decided to go with Valpass. Their bid was for 4 years, and we've had a good experience with them, and we'd just like to keep them.
Any other questions about that?
So help me out here. What, the phones and tablets are used for what?
the phone and tablets, the inmates use them for call home, or they can have face-to-face with their loved ones, with their
Okay.
spouse. Or,
Thank you.
And with both the phone and the tablets, the jail receives commission from the providers. Right.
Yeah.
So this is on the income side of the ledger.
Sure,
So
sure.
The medical's on the
I
expense
just wanted to
side,
make sure I
the
was
income.
on the understanding of what it was used for.
So,
I
so
apologize.
Jailer, Todd, on the, based on your criteria on the commission, you believe that Viapath has the best value for the jail and for the
Yes, sir.
court?
Any other questions?
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And tablets, same thing?
tablets, same thing. It makes sense to keep the same vendor with both tablets and our phones. So again, Valpath, excuse me, had the best price,
And the most experience with our
most
jail.
experience with them, and we've had real good experience with them.
This will be a change in tablet providers, right?
Yes.
So this will be the first time both phones and tablets are
No,
together?
it's not changed. I thought you meant price.
It's a change in the phone provider.
Phone
provider. Okay, I knew one of them was
Securus
switching.
to Viapath, the tablets will be the same provider. Just
Gotcha.
wanted to keep them
I
on
knew
the
one
same
switched.
thing.
So this will be the first time that we've had both?
Right.
But there was a
Yes.
brief time period where I think
Yes,
we
a
used
lot of
Securus
jails,
tablets.
they keep the same provider for phone and tablet, but we had a split. We had Securus for phones and then Viapath for tablets, and it just makes sense to have it all together.
Yeah. I thought I said that right ago. All right.
So Viapath is the recommended tablet provider.
Yes, sir.
Any questions about that?
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And finally, commissary.
Commissary, we went with Calwell. We have Airmark now. Airmark's commission is like $443, and Calwell came up with 45 across the board for everything.
That is your commission.
Yeah.
The jail's commission. So higher the better.
Yes, sir. So I recommend that we go with Calwell on our commissary.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
Does this also help to maybe streamline having the same vendor on food service and commissary? Kind of
Yeah.
makes it
I
easier
believe
to...
we can offer some more hot foods and,
Out of the commissary.
yeah, through them.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I know that was a lot of work.
Well, actually, I'll say the
Sleep
work
is
has
not-
just begun, because now we have to get written contracts with all these.
Yeah.
We have to manage the switch over from on the ones that are changing. And I would go ahead and suggest that reviewing those contracts with the incumbent providers that are leaving right now, as far as, requirements as to how to unwind those is really important, so we can have a smooth transition, particularly in that medical, because you don't want any
Yeah, I know.
lapse in coverage for the inmates or anything like that. And we're happy to help you any way we can on that.
Sure.
But that's going to be a bear, and we're going to be coming back to the court with new contracts on each of those to be approved. So that's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
Maura and I will be having a lot more emails
Right.
and late night discussions back and forth.
While you're here, anything else on the contracts?
So, we're good.
I know we had some deputies injured
Yeah.
over the weekend, interactions with inmates, and we hope they are heal fast. Any updates you can give us?
Yeah, we had one has a broken elbow. They brought an inmate in that says he wasn't drunk, but he hollered all whole time he was there, and they went in and got in an altercation and broke one of our deputies' elbow. Then Sunday we had one, he removed an inmate out of a cell, and he just, as soon as he got out, he jumped him. And that deputy did a good job of subduing him, but he still ended up broken wrist. So that's where we're going to look at training, and we're going to fix that.
And there was a third incident?
No, I don't believe so. No, that's the stove.
Okay.
There was another deputy with the one that broke the elbow, but she wasn't.
Okay. Well, our best to those folks. I hope they heal quickly, and anything we can do to help, let us know.
I'll do it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gold, your report. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go there, yeah. Randy, can I ask you to come on up? And I sent out some information earlier about our construction permit fees and wanted to have this discussion. We've talked about it in the past a bit, both perhaps streamlining and setting a cap on construction permit fees, because we're bound a bit by KRS as to what we can charge for permit fees. And under our current plan, that for commercial and industrial projects dictates that our fee is 1% of the overall construction cost. That can bleed into the millions of dollars potentially, and we can't, legitimately say to anybody who might sue us based on KRS that that is our actual cost. We have to charge close to what our actual cost might be. And so there's a conundrum there. And typically for large projects that provide a lot of jobs, one of our first ways of providing an incentive is to waive the permit fee entirely. And we can use that waiver, the value of that, as an incentive that the state will count towards its requirement for a certain percentage of local government to provide incentives for big projects that are also being incentivized by the state. So they need some sort of skin in the game from our level, and waiving the permit fee on big projects that provide a lot of jobs is one way we can do it. But apparently not all the big projects in the county are going to be creating a lot of jobs. We have these solar farms coming in specifically that are large dollar projects that do not create a lot of jobs, and therefore waiving, I think, the permit fee for them is kind of inappropriate. We only have ever done that for the creation of new jobs. But it also opens this question of the legitimacy of a 1% total construction fee on such large projects that will total into seven figures. So kind of led to the thoughts about creating a cap on our construction permit fee, building fees. And in the course of researching this, Steve's office did some good work looking around the state at communities and counties, what they charge, what the city here charges for permit fees, whether they have any caps, what the state assesses as a permit fee for their inspections. And after reviewing all those, I think you got copies of those if you reviewed them. I made a kind of a informal proposal to think about duplicating what the state does, and what it does is charge per square foot. When we charge 1% of a total construction cost, we're relying on the company to accurately tell us what that cost is, and that may or may not be all that accurate. It's kind of a honor system in some cases, but when you are assessing by square foot, it's pretty easy to get the drawings, get the recommendations by the state, what the state's going on, and know exactly what that square footage is. Makes the fee a little bit more accurate. They charge anywhere from 16 to 15 cents, as I recall, 16 cents per square foot inspection on commercial and industrial projects, 15 cents pretty much across the board for everything else, if I remember that.
I will say there was a typo on that spreadsheet that I did for miscellaneous and utility, it was 13 cents.
13
So there's a
cents.
lower amount for miscellaneous and utility. And
Yeah.
then for some reason, the state also has production and greenhouses at 10 cents a square foot. So.
Who
But
knows?
other than that, yeah, everything's 15 or 16 cents.
So in talking with Steve a little bit about this, one of the things about perhaps matching what the state does, it would be hard for somebody to sue us saying that our rate is unreasonable, because that's what the state has in its fee schedule. Make it a little easier to defend in case there was ever argument about it.
And the appeal does go to the Department of Building, Housing, and Construction, which that's their fee schedule. So it's hard. It would be very hard for them to say, we think our fee schedule is inappropriate.
Yeah. So, knowing that and understanding Steve's logic, that would make sense to me to protect us that way, while also, helping cover the cost of these inspections, which falls on Randy's shoulders, among others. One way we could do this, because I do think we need to not only account for some sort of cap, a reasonable cap that doesn't get us sued necessarily, but also making this adjustment to copy what the state does, simplifying things. That was kind of what I thought might be a good strategy. I talked it over with Randy, though, and he had a thought. I'd like you to express what you told me about the current kind of reactions to what we charge, especially residential. So,
Currently, the way our permit fees are written, I've never really had any kickback for these permit fees. For some of these, they may be a little more than what, if we went to the state's adoption of their permit fees, maybe a reduction in fees that we bring in. The only really kickbacks I've ever gotten on the permit fees.
don't use kickbacks.
I'm sorry, not kickbacks.
I think
sorry.
you mean
I'm sorry,
pushbacks.
I mean, the only really complaints resistance I've gotten on this was on the commercial side. The 1%. When somebody has a $2 million project, writing a check for that 1% is a pretty big chunk. And so that was the only really complaints I've ever had on the permit fees. The rest of these permit fees, if you're building a 2,000 square foot home, the way the schedule of fees, you're looking at about a $400 permit. If it's 1,600 square foot or less, it's $350. I don't think that's anything too great to ask for permit fees. I think that's kind of right along with what most people are going to pay for something like that. And I think that helps cover the cost of, the inspections and all that, and the time involved with the plan review and inspections. Some jurisdictions do charge plan review fees and inspection fees, whereas our building permit fee includes all that in the cost. But for what we have now, it does, seem like it works. Other than that, have maybe a cap on, commercial, industrial. There are maybe a few little things that we need to have a little clarity on permit fees for things. Commercial exhaust is one thing the state has made the local jurisdictions required to inspect. And maybe we need to put a line item for that for inspection fee, and a couple other little tweaks on clarity on in-ground pool inspection permit fees and that type of things. But everything else seems like, I don't have too many complaints about. But it's up to you guys of what you decide to do.
The amount of money we make off these permit fees, I think if you've looked at line items in the budget, doesn't amount to a whole lot. It's on the order of anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000, depending on the activity in the county that particular year. Originally, the permit fees were established to help cover the cost of Randy's office, but it's been a long time since those fees covered the cost of having a full-time building inspector with benefits and things like that. So it's not so much a concern about revenue as it is about making sure that people adhere to building codes and get inspected and make sure they're doing it correctly. And to have a full-time inspector is important to making sure that is true. And so the permit fees do help defray the cost a bit of Randy's office, but they were never meant to completely cover it, at least not recently. So whatever we do with the permit fees, if we lower them, for example, it won't be that significant a cost, or we can leave them as they are because people are used to them now. I do think Randy and I both agree that, and Steve agrees, based on KRS, that the safest thing to do is to put a cap, reasonable cap, on our commercial and industrial permit fee.
From a legal standpoint, the biggest issue is the commercial and industrial, because that's currently at 1%. And, if it's a $1 million project, the question is, does it really take, that much of Randy's time to inspect it, So it is probably easier to justify it based on square feet. That's defensible. The rest of our fees are either square footage or flat fees. Obviously, looking at the actual rate of those square footage, that's something fiscal court can do while we're kind of cracking open this ordinance. Might as well, make sure it works well with everything.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to ask for your opinions in a moment, your thoughts. One of the things that appealed to me, and I understand completely what Randy's saying, is that moving to the state's example of 16 cents per square foot on commercial industrial, 15 cents per square foot on many other items, 13 cents and 10 cents for a couple niche areas, is fairly simple. It is easier to track because it worked on square footage and not try to determine true total cost. And if you add in that something the concern about how we properly value permitting and inspecting things with which we don't have a lot of experience, like solar farms, and a new wrinkle, solar battery farms, battery storage farms. Again, there's one plan for Toy and Thoston Road at the moment, next to a new substation that Big Rivers is putting in. It only covers 30 acres, but it's $200 million worth of high-tech batteries that are the size of cars. And it is an inspection task that right now we don't have much experience with. So what that costs us, what that means for us, is an unknown. And to make sure that we can cover what we think we might need, and to really double down on the fact that these new types of projects adhere to permit regulations, both state and local. I'm thinking a cap of $500,000 would cover it, in all cases. Normally, our commercial and industrial projects don't approach that. I don't think we've had anything like that in many, many years. But we have also often waived the fee altogether for larger projects because they created jobs. Now, these large, expensive renewables projects are not job creators. So, and if we did not have a cap, some of them would be subject to, again, 7-figure permit fees. So I think I might have mentioned to some of you that, adopting the state's kind of very simple 16 cents, 15 cents across the board, maybe with a couple exceptions, would lower costs in the residential building arena and other things related to residential for local folks, while also, I think, with that cap protecting us on the commercial residential, the commercial industrial side. So, and all to, say again, I understand what Randy's saying, and people are used to our system right now, but there are certain flaws, especially when it comes to examples like these solar farms. So with that, anybody have any thoughts?
I got a question.
Sure.
I think I'm following you, but on the 16 cents for commercial, on a solar farm, you're going to do this on square footage, whatever the acreage is that's consuming, with a cap of 500,000.
Yeah. That's the proposal that I threw out there.
When you've done the numbers, it appears to be adequate.
Yes. Well, yeah, if we went 16 cents per square foot on a solar farm without a cap, it would also reach into the significant seven figures. Well, yeah, I have a question about that is, what do you measure? What are you measuring? The solar panel? The
Well, that's
pipe
what I'm
that
saying.
goes
Is
in the
it-
ground?
Or is it just the acreage
Well,
that
well, yeah,
that
I think we
consume.
should set what's defined on that. They don't have the option to do that.
You'd have to take in the footprint.
That's exactly right.
If it's a-
So
if it's
the
a
acre.
So you're
4-acre
saying all the
footprint.
acreage?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense, Randy?
There's no other way to do that.
I mean, that is, kind of a difficult thing, where you base that number on, and so, yeah, I mean, would it be based on the footprint of what the structures that they're placing on the ground? Would it be the total property that they're developing? But I think we need to put that in an
Now,
ordinance
that
or
would
something,
make
what
sense
that
to me.
number's coming off of to
Yeah.
help clarify, so there's no confusion.
The way the state says it, for new constructions, of course, this is thinking about buildings. Total square footage of the building shall be determined by the outside dimensions of the building. And then for alterations, it's similar. Square footage shall be determined by the outside dimensions of the area being altered or repaired.
So that'd be the fence.
and I think the state's probably wrestling with this too.
I'm sure.
And I think one of the things we can do is
A lot of things need to change about that.
wait to see what the state is going to consider those things about solar farms that are subject to these fees. But if you just took the solar panel square footage, it'd be millions and millions of dollars. Because they're 2,000 acres of solar panels is a lot of square.
But if you're gonna fence it in, that's the footprint. That's what I'm calling a
I
fence
agree.
post, the fence post, and whatever's in that area. That'd be the square footage.
Well, but
That's 16 cents.
what I don't know is, for instance, Columbia Sportswear, they have a perimeter fence. I don't know that they were charged per square foot on the entirety of the property or
That would-
just on the building.
Well, back then commercial, its weight is now 1% of the total estimated cost of construction, unless there was some type of court agreement on capping that permit fee for that.
That's where the actual 1% works perhaps better. But again, 1%, our 1% charge on commercial and industrial is very high compared to communities around us. The city, for example, charges 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah, I think we really ought to fall in line, more in line with the rest of the counties in the state.
Did you find a community, I forget, Steve, that charged it up to 1% on commercial and industrial?
No, we're by far among, or the highest there. There were a lot of places that had sliding fees. For example, City of Henderson has categories of construction cost, like this much to this much, it'll be, this amount, this much to this much, it's another amount. And theirs goes from 0.07% up to 0.26%. And residential, it's about 0.8 to 0.17. And then there are some others. Madison County, theirs is percentage based on cost of construction. Their lowest level is 0.5%, but the higher it goes up as far as cost, they do, categories again, and it goes down to 0.175%. So most of them, the larger the project, the smaller the percentage is on their fee. The ones that do it on percentage, there's a relatively small number that do it based on percentage, but the ones that do, they're significantly less than the 1%, and they are decreasing as you go up in construction cost.
I think just to keep it simple, we move in line with what the state does. It's hard for somebody to sue you. It's not difficult to understand. It's already been put in place and been used for quite some time. That just makes it simple and easy for us.
And Randy, you may want to reach out to the state and see how they are permitting things like solar farms, because the fence thing, it's simple, but, for example, I couldn't imagine if somebody was building a house and they were putting a fence around the house. It's just going to be the house structure
That's
that
correct.
would be measured, right?
Right.
So I'm not sure how the state's going to approach that, but whatever they're doing as far as definitions there, it would make sense for us to adopt those, or however they're measuring that. But I wasn't able to find anything in my research about that. They're probably dealing with that
Solar's
themselves.
a kind of a newer thing, and then with this battery farm for the solar project,
That's their footprint. Seems pretty simple to me.
But it is a new world.
yeah.
It makes me, I really have concerns about this solar panels and
Me and you both.
down the line. we got to make sure we're bonding this and bonding it good enough that we can't predict what's going to happen 30 years from now. We don't know what a gallon of diesel is going to cost 30 years from now. When we start cleaning this up, and we're going to get to clean it up, it's just follow the, look at what's happening where they've had these for 30 years and they're walking away.
And zoning needs to be looked at.
Yes.
You know, we do have bond provisions in our ordinance. We're going to have to update the ordinance to account for these battery farms.
Well, I also noticed in the ordinance too that it talked about over 5 acres is considered, industrial or whatever. So, I don't think it's right for them to receive the tax break as being agriculture when that's not agriculture.
But I do think that changes.
Yeah, I think
The
so,
zoning
too.
changes once they go over 5 acres.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Well, the zoning is separate from what the PVA would tax them at,
I realize we're going on a different subject, but I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure it was clear.
So I've heard from Taylor that the idea of aligning with the state is amenable to him. Any other thoughts?
I agree with that. I think, like he said, simpler is better. I think it actually makes us, more business friendly in a way because
I agree.
they're already having to pay this on the state level, and if our ordinance mirrors that for whatever prospect that comes here, they'd be very familiar with it. And again, I think anything we can do right now to help housing, this is not a big break, but it would be a help. So in those ways, and I think it just makes sense. This was not a moneymaker by any means for us to try to generate revenue. And like the judge mentioned, we oftentimes waive this for the bigger projects. And putting a cap in, I think, is also to our benefit. Legalities as far as.
Well,
So I'm for it.
I'm not sure I agree with the cap, and the reason being is we usually waive it anyway if it's a big project, a job producer. The more we waive, the more our match is. So if it went to $1 million and we said, well, we're going to waive that, we actually matched $1 million. But if we cap it at $500,000, that's what we're.
That is a downside. Now, I don't again, not having a cap opens us up to some potential litigation.
I don't see how if we're mirroring the state doesn't have a cap.
Well, the way it reads is the fiscal court shall establish a system of reasonable fees to be charged every applicant for such permit, but fees shall not exceed the cost of the service provided. So, the question is, I would imagine if we had some huge project, Randy might either have to engage additional staff or experts or something like that to help. But if it's just him, that's going to be in excess of 1 year's salary for him. You're not making $1 million a year.
But
right?
he'd
So
also
it's
is
not
going to have to
take
get
a year.
additional training if he doesn't know how to expect these battery bases, things like that. And I can tell you, being in technology and different things, none of that is cheap at all. And then there's ongoing education to keep up with said certifications. So,
Fair point.
I'd have to ask this question, but I would almost bet the state also waives its permitting fees on big projects. I think that is. I'd maybe do a
Yeah.
little research on that, but they do other tax waivers for big projects or job producing projects.
Well, you got to be competitive,
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But I know what you're saying. There are other ways to provide incentives, of course. Often the waiving of the permit fee is an easy one, but we usually have no problem getting there anyway. And for most of these, even by a square footage for a normal, like a plant, a 1 million square foot plant would be $130,000, right? In that example. So waiving it in that case it's even a 1% would probably, if we were 1% without a cap like we have now, it probably would be about not much less than that in the end. It's these huge projects like these solar farms with no employees that is such a new thing, and we're not incentivizing in any way these solar farms. They've asked, and they've approached the state, but at the local level, we're not providing incentives.
As we
So
should not.
In the huh?
I said we definitely should not.
Yeah. So in the examples of projects of this size, it's only going to be solar farms that have this size footprint, and kind of engage this higher end cap. For the normal industrial project, I think we wouldn't be approaching $500,000 anyway. So I can do a little bit more math on that, but for instance, hydro aluminum, $15 million investment. Is that right?
Yep.
You remember the construction permit fee?
The hydro aluminum, well, we had 2 permits last year, at the end of the year, that was roughly around $20,000 building permit fees. And-
$15 million investment, $20,000 permit.
Yep.
So the $500,000 cap far exceeds anything that we have seen in quite some
Yes.
time.
Yep.
I can live with that.
I mean, look back at the building codes for the past 30 years. Almost every time I read that on the radio station, there was very little industrial on there. So this is actually a good thing that we're talking about, because we actually have some industrial taking place right now. So
Yep.
would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, in years past, we haven't seen as much commercial development as we've seen here recently. A lot of stuff down there at the Riverport, and industrial plant has been expanding. We've seen more stuff, companies out there expanding their businesses than we've seen in the past. We had 2 permits for 20,000 last year, and I think maybe 1 for 10. So. And that's not typical for a normal year, so.
So does it just sound like on the solar farms, as it relates to the solar farms, are we going to look into what, it's not fence post to fence post, so it would actually be whatever the panels are, whatever space the panels are taking up?
We will look into that, yeah. I think maybe, again, piggybacking on what the state's going to decide to do might be helpful.
So it's not definite what they're doing.
Not that I've seen yet, but maybe Randy can do a little bit of research on that, see how they're measuring these.
Yeah, and I don't know if, the states may not be doing any permitting on these solar farms. They may just all be going to local level at all, or completely. So the state may not have a protocol for that because they're not addressing the solar. So I can make a call to the state Department of Housing and Building Construction.
Or even some other county that's already got the solar.
One of the
solar
easy
farms.
buttons on that would be just to say measure the square footage on the solar panels. It would still
Times
be, it would
how
be
many solar
easier.
panels, yeah.
I think the fenced area is a little bit more dicey because we don't consider the fenced area
It's not under roof.
of other building permits. We consider the building square footage.
Makes sense.
Not easy.
We definitely got to dig into that, because
I agree.
I'm not sure I agree with just measuring the panels.
I agree. I think it's too
What he's
little.
saying is, if you measure the whole farm, you don't measure the whole yard for permit or sorry, grant paper, for instance. You measure
Right.
the whole property. You have to be careful with that, I think. I agree with that.
Well, but the fence is not going to be the entirety of the property. You're not just saying the whole farm.
But you're gonna measure a lot of stuff that don't have anything open, no roof, no anything, just grass.
Well, solar farm entirety doesn't have any roof on it.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Let us do a little research on that.
Yeah. we
See
need
what,
to-
we might turn to other states for some of that too. If I'm hearing you correctly, pending that question, is the idea of mirroring the state with a $500,000 cap seemingly the easiest way to go?
I agree to it.
I agree.
Same here.
I guess we don't need a formal vote because we have more information to bring back to you.
Consensus is that it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Steve,
begin the
any thoughts?
bones of drafting an ordinance, but as far as any sort of, technicals type stuff, that goes way beyond the legal world. I'll rely on Randy for, that sort of, putting the meat on the bones when it comes to how unique projects like utility projects or things like that are to be measured.
What do you think, Randy?
Sounds good to me. I'll talk to the state and see if they have any protocol for these battery and solar farms. If they don't, then we'll have to start looking and see what we can find.
Also, again, we're talking about, switching our residential and the other categories to a cents per square foot model.
I mean, if
we haven't mentioned it, but we might as well throw in wind power.
that's something we will need to address too, because that is a possibility coming up. They got some meteorological towers they've put up to see the feasibility of that, and there's been some talk of those, and so that's something that we may need to address too. Is the ordinance, the zoning ordinance for these wind turbine farms.
Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, because when we rewrote our zoning ordinance and updated it a couple of years ago, we didn't really address wind turbine farms because at the time the technology, the last time we had a study done, said it wasn't really feasible. There's somebody looking at it now because they're saying technology's advanced and it may be feasible now. So probably need to address that in the zoning ordinance, and then of course what we're going to do with the fees on that, because a wind turbine doesn't have much of a footprint.
Got to go vertical.
Related to this, also having to do with overall permit fee versus actual cost, what we charge for electrical permits. I'm hoping you would allow me to, it's not necessarily our permit schedule on that's a problem. It's pretty straightforward. We use 1% of the total electrical contract, the actual contract, which is much easier to determine, and I don't get a lot of pushback on that fee schedule. But I am wary of a large electrical contract, such as in perhaps a battery farm, allowing our inspector to claim a very, very large permit fee. I don't think that's correct. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to work with Randy and Mike Valines, our electrical inspector, to maybe determine an appropriate cap on that fee as well. Not casting aspersions, but no electrical inspector anywhere should get rich off just because of a certain sizable project. Does that make sense?
And Mike is not an employee of the county. We have a contract with Mike.
In his case, he's paid, he keeps a percentage, he keeps the fee.
Yes.
And that works well because he makes enough to make it worth his time. We don't have to hire him. For the most part, it works well. It's not an unusual arrangement in the state. Hiring somebody full-time, paying them benefits is expensive for the county. We can always look at that again too, but for the moment, I just want to make sure that there isn't a fee schedule that it's an undue burden and also enriches one person unreasonably. Maybe Randy and I can bring back a recommendation on that to the court.
That sounds good.
So again, I'm hearing everybody say mirroring, getting to the cents per square foot, mirroring what the state does, put a $500,000 cap, come back with some recommendations on how we measure this, and we'll get to work on that. So I'd hope to have that put to bed fairly soon. We can move on with other things.
Yep. Thanks, Randy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Steve. I know you and the judge have spent a lot of time on this, so appreciate that.
Steve especially. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Gold, your payments.
Yes, Judge, I've got only 2 checks today, but they're significant. The first is reimbursement for county budget employees, $5,539.51, and a flow through from the city, $458.33, bringing today's total to the county $5,997.84, and the fiscal year total to $177,016.83. And I'm giving this to our future accountant, and I know she can handle it.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve county attorney's payments.
So
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's like Steve likes to say, Welcome to adulting when money comes right into your hands and goes right back out to the government. Yeah. Sad but true. Treasurer Ryder, some budget business to take care of.
This is the second reading of Budget Amendment Number 6 for the current fiscal year. This is amending into the budget additional receipts of $350,537. The breakdown for this is amending into the road fund $150,000 discretionary fund from the 2019 Cairo Laws Bridge project, with the corresponding appropriation being road fund blacktop. Amending into the general fund $32,169 from insurance proceeds from sheriff vehicle damages, with the corresponding appropriation of sheriff maintenance repairs vehicles. Amending into the national opioid fund $175,368, and this is actually from the first settlement, with the corresponding appropriation being opioid fund expenses. Total amount for this budget amendment is $350,537.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the second reading of this budget amendment. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And another one?
Second reading of Budget Amendment Number 7 for the current fiscal year, amending into the budget reimbursement of state funds for e-poll books to be used by the clerk's office for future elections. The total of this budget amendment is $102,000. The revenue side is miscellaneous general fund. The appropriation is general fund elections, voting machines. Again, the total of this budget amendment is $102,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have no transfers. I do have claims. From the general fund to APB Consulting Solutions, $2,789. This is for sheriff supplies and is to come from the sheriff's office supplies appropriation line. To Conica Minolta Premier Finance, $840.09. This is for the sheriff copier contract buyout and is to come from the sheriff's office supply appropriation line. To Sheriff Stauffer in the amount of $1,245.81. This is for the training incentive and is to come from the sheriff's training incentive appropriation line and is to be paid with the April 13th, 2023 pay. To Visa in the amount of $1,210.67. The majority of this is to come from the EMA supplies appropriation line, which is for EMA training expenses, and also from the judges training expenses appropriation line. From the road fund to Vomac truck sales and service, $159,700.80. This is for a single axle dump truck, which was actually ordered September of 2021 and is to come from the new machinery equipment appropriation line.
And that was approved at the time by Fiscal
Yes.
Court. It's how long it takes to get these things now. And it was bought on state contract.
Yes.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be bid out.
From the jail fund to Advanced Document Solutions, $778.53. This is for the copier lease and is to come from the data processing equipment appropriation line. To U.S. Bank, which is the credit card, $1,285.62. The majority of this is to come from the prisoner transports and furniture and fixtures appropriation lines. That's all.
Any questions about those claims?
I make a motion to pay the claims.
Motion and a second. Without any further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. One bit of old business. We have a copier here in our office, the judge's office, and we need to to sign a service agreement at $50 per month. It's a contract, so I need to bring it before the court. And I'm looking for a motion to approve us entertaining, getting into a service agreement to make sure our copier stays working.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I've
Motion
reviewed it
second.
as to form and legality. We only changed one thing. I think that was venue. Other than that, it was good to go.
Typical lease, or service agreement, I should say. Any other question about that? I think we have a motion in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Anybody from our audience have anything for good of the county? Looks like Nick Stallings does.
It's all good. Now, since y'all saw that we got our new single axle truck, dump truck in, that thing came with just a bed, a standard truck. There was no plow, salter, or hydraulic system to get all that to work. So what I need to do is go out for bids for a plow and salter for that truck. It shouldn't be over 30,000, but I would go first to do it just to make sure.
I think we would all agree, go and check it out and see what it's going to look like.
Right?
Do you know if
need a
there's a
motion?
state contract for any
Yeah, I
of
was
those?
about to
Is
ask.
that?
Is there a state contract for any of those?
I don't think. I don't know. I don't know. I can find out from.
Well, regardless, you're just going to go get bids and stuff that would come back, or
Yes.
explore the state contract
Yes.
purchase,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yep, I'm good with it.
Sometimes we can bid it out and get it cheaper than a state contract, right?
Yes, that is possible.
We need a motion on that, Judge.
I don't think so. I think giving you okay to go look.
Got it.
What you're going to determine is whether we need to take it to bid or not.
Yes.
If it looks like
Yes.
we're going to do so.
If I'm starting to get numbers over 30, then I'll take the bid. Same way with our F550. That was ordered 7 months ago. It came in. It's supposed to come in next week, but it's just a chassis only. So there's no bed, no plow, and no salter, no hydraulics to get those running. That's just how Ford makes them. So I will need to go out for bid for those, because I'm assuming, cause with having a bed, plow, we'll go over 30 for sure for that one. So that'll come in next week. So I'd like to go ahead and maybe go out for bid, solicit some bids now, so then I'll open them up next court. Because I know that will go over, for sure, go over 30,000.
So what do you think the timeline's gonna be on getting a bid? And
I mean, they have not been behind. Our truck that we just got done, it went to Ettinger, because that's where the bid was set up when Bill read it back in 2021. And there was no holdups there. The holdup was just getting the truck itself to Ettinger, built off the line. So I'm not seeing any indications that we're going to have a slow wait for the bed or the truck plow. One thing that we typically try to use our old plows and old salters, but the one that was set up for the 550, it's got patches on its patches. So we need to look to get another one. Same way with the salters.
How about if we do this to expedite both of these, considering, I know what you're saying, we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year here. And, how about if I entertain a motion to allow Nick to take these out for bid if he finds out, in fact, they're going to need to be bid, and just get that process underway. You won't have to come back and ask again in 2 weeks.
Yep.
We'll just let you go, and if it's not going to require a bid, you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, basically let me do what I need to do to get it done, and I don't have to worry about it. So.
Yeah. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Motion and a second. Anybody have a problem with that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Godspeed.
Can I ask real quick, Nick, since you're up here, spring cleanups, just put a plug in for that, right?
Yes, last weekend we had it at Niagara Fire Department.
2 weekends ago. Yeah.
Yes, because this weekend we have it at the Basket Park, in between there where the post office is at, in that open area right there. We'll we'll have that cleanup. And in 2 weeks following this coming weekend, we'll have it out at Smith Mills Fire Department. And that will conclude spring cleanup.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else for good of the county? Magistrate Starks, anything for good of the county?
All is good in the fifth. And hope everyone had a great Easter.
Deal. Magistrate Berry.
Thank you, Judge. Thank everybody for coming. Congratulations, Caitlin, to you. Magistrate Putman's taking you to lunch. Have you decided where you're going? You're still thinking. Well, make him take you somewhere good. Did you get bored with all this business? Pretty important. It's just a little boring sometimes. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. You just happen to get a good day. But no, I think anyway. Congratulations. We're glad to have you. We're proud of you, and all's good in the first, I believe.
Thank you. Mr. Gold?
Things are good in the county attorney's office. Caitlin, congratulations. It really is a big deal, and it's part of your punishment for having it declared your day is you've got to sit through a meeting. But it is a chance, especially since you're going into accounting. You need to get used to boring, right? Yes. Boring but important things, and that's a whole lot of what we do here. And I hope what you saw is that you've got a team of people who are watching the dollars and cents of the county very closely. And you've got a team of people that are working every day to do the best they can for the people of Henderson. So generally, that's a good thing, and not every county can say that. But congratulations on your decision to go to U of L. I say that as a proud Cardinal myself. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn a lot, and I hope you get that accounting degree and then come back here and use that in Henderson to help Henderson. And it is your day. You're the only person in the county that can say that today is your day. So, lord that over everybody. Let them realize that it is your day, and make Magistrate Putman buy you like double dessert or something like that. I think the most expensive place you can.
Thank you. Magistrate Putman.
Thank you, Judge. Caitlin, congratulations. We'll get an opportunity to talk a lot. I'm kind of a Cardinal fan, kinda. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, that's along with Mr. Gold. But again, it is your day. Next April 11th, when it falls, you should celebrate. Just not your birthday. Yeah. But 2 days to celebrate. But we'll get a chance to talk. And congratulations again. And Judge, I just want to mention tonight, starting at 5:30 to 7:30, I believe on WSON, there'll be a senior gathering place telethon. It's probably one of the really only fundraiser they do all year. So if you're inclined to give, be generous, call in and make a donation. And all is good in the fourth.
Thank you. Master Tompkins.
Well, first of all, I would like to say congratulations to our Judges Scholar. Very well done. Getting to where you are means you have a tremendous amount of intrinsic motivation, and being a true leader means doing the right thing when nobody's watching. Clearly, you have a very good skill set there. Let that guide you as you go off to college, because you will lean on that greatly, I would say. We are super proud of you, because I'm a pretty intelligent person, but I was terrible with school. I didn't have that discipline. So I applaud you for that as well, because that's one of the, main criteria there. So very well done, and we're super proud of you. Enjoy your day. All is well in a second.
Thank you. Master Southern.
Congratulations, Caitlin. That's what everybody said. Ditto.
It gets tough, doesn't it?
It does. I don't know if y'all seen it or not, but Cardin VFD got, I don't know if you call it moved up or moved down, but they improved their rating through the insurance companies, which is a big deal. That says that the fees we collect and give back to the fire departments are working. We're a 4 now. So in Cardin, if you're in a 5-mile radius of the fire department, you're under a 4, which should drive down the rates, which is great because that fee actually gets reimbursed to you back through insurance. You know, it's not really a fee. So congratulations to them guys. They worked hard to get there. And all's good in District 3.
Thank you. It's interesting you mentioned that because the new ISO ratings will come out officially, I think, in July. And I believe that other volunteer fire departments will see their ratings lowered as well. And that will mean several $100s in savings in some cases. So
Yes.
it more than pays back the fee. And I do think that our decision years ago to institute fees on property tax bills is working as we had hoped. And it's good to point out. I'm glad you did. Kaylin, I'll say this. Everybody has a different path in life. Everybody's different. And yours has been different than other folks, and that's okay. Regardless of path, it's where you're heading in the future that really matters. And I'm so proud. I think you might be the first graduate that's sat up here as a Judges Scholar. So it's very cool not only to honor you, but to know that you've already made a decision and are mapping out your future years in a way that I think we can't be anything but thrilled for you. So I agree with Steve. I hope you come back. Regardless, though, don't worry about your path. It's yours. It'll work. Everybody's is different, and we're really proud of you. I'm very proud of you. So, congrats. And I appreciate the conversation today about permit fees, and I know permit fees are the least sexy thing often talked about. But the other thing I was proud of is that, you know, at least I want to say since I've been judge, I've been very proud of the collaborative nature of decision making at the court, and open discussion doesn't mean we all just sit here and agree all the time. You're not potted plants. Your job is not to sit here and vote aye. Your job is to deliberate on behalf of your district and also all the people of Henderson County, including Kaylin, to try to make the best decision. So I appreciate the back and forth today. That's the way I like to do things if we can. And,
Absolutely.
So thank you. And it's a good example, I think, of local government doing what it should be doing in a civil way at a time when not everybody's really civil when it comes to political matters. So with that sermon, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kaylin votes aye. Otherwise, everybody else can leave.
That's right.
Good job.